Hello. Welcome everyone to the second lecture of our beginners course. I hope you like the first video. We are going to build on the concepts that we have discussed in our first video, that is the course plan. And one more thing before we actually dive in and we learn what we are actually going to do. Uh, in this exact lecture, we are going to work on how to exactly work with Excel. So we'll be learning some of the techniques which are really important. So for each and every one of you who is going through this lecture, I want you to pay full attention because this is going to be the building block. And with each and every lecture that we are going to see after this, we'll be using these techniques in almost each and every video. Right, so pay attention to this because if you are not able to follow up with what I am doing, you will not be able to follow up with my subsequent videos that I will be posting in the entire course. So buckle up, there's a lot to do. Last thing before we actually begin, we have a motto in our YouTube channel that with every 100 subscribers that we get on this YouTube channel, we are going to support one kid for his entire education, specifically through our courses. So I hope you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and you share it with your friends so that we can reach more and more kids and we can support education. So we'll dive into this now, finally. So this is a particular data set that you are seeing in front of you, and here's the sheet one of the same data set. So you can see ID, cholesterol, glucose level, HDL ratio, and then you have so many headers. This is second sheet. This is how we'll see our data set after a certain point. So in this lecture, we'll be learning some techniques and we'll understand how we can go ahead and we can create a data set which is this clean, which we can understand as well. Because here we can see sometimes we are not even able to see what exactly is there in a particular cell, right? So we'll work with that. First will be the first technique that we are going to use in this particular lecture is control plus page up and page down, right? So what will happen if you are going to use page up and page down? This will only happen if you have, let's say, two sheets or minimum two sheets. So if I'm going to click on control, and with control if I'm going to click on page down, you can see I will be redirected to my second sheet, and if I'm clicking on control page up, you will be going to the first sheet itself. So the reasoning why we are actually using our keyboard and we are not using our mouse to actually navigate between the sheets, the problem that arises most of the time is when you're actually using your mouse to navigate through the entire data set, sometimes you're very slow as compared to how you can work with your keyboard. So as you'll work on, you will understand why I say this. So as a general practice, whenever I teach my students, I always say to plug out your keyboard if you're using a personal computer, and if you're using a laptop, I would like everyone to not use the trackpad at all, right? Always and always try to use keyboard, because everything that you can imagine that can be done in Excel, 90% of the work can be done using keyboard, right? And if you're using keyboard, you will be much faster. So in today's world, when we see so many people coming up and so many people having a skill for Microsoft Excel, chat gpt being integrated with Microsoft Excel, we can say that for anyone who is working with Microsoft Excel, it's not about how much you know about Microsoft Excel at this point, because you can always search for a particular thing. It's all about how fast you are while working with Microsoft Excel, how efficient you are. So just remember, when I say you should always use your keyboard, I will try my best to use keyboard for most of the functions, but sometimes I will have to use my mouse because I have to show you where exactly the particular function is, even when I'm going to use keyboard next, right? So that being said, let's understand this exact data set. You can find this data set through the drive link from the description. You can download the data set and you can work with it. So this data set is taken from a particular hospital. It's a sensory data, that's why we have hidden all the names of patients, and this is related to diabetes. So we have information related to their glucose level, their cholesterol level, their age, where they are from, their height, weight, and what is the frame, and we have blood pressure, and we have waist, hip measures. So such measures are there in front of us, but we can see the columns that we can see in this exact data set, how are you going to, okay, first things, most of the people might get confused of how did I highlight this. If I'm going to click on A and if I'm going to drag it towards this, you can see I can highlight all of it, right? So this is something I'm doing with my mouse. Or if you have selected this entire cell, you can always do shift and right arrow. We'll work on that. For now, just remember we have to do control up and control down for shifting between the sheets. So these are known as the headers in a particular data set. Don't worry of how I'm highlighting everything so quickly. You don't have to remember that right now. We'll cover it later. So the first general practice that I follow in most of my data analytics projects is that I highlight all of them and I bold them, right? Most of the time I bold them. But before, making all of these headers bold, there's a problem that we can't even see the information which is being provided in this particular column. The column width is so small, right? I can change the column width, by left clicking using my mouse and dragging my mouse here and there, and I can see, okay, this is an appropriate fit. I can see my data now. There are three techniques through which we can do it. I prefer the last one, but we need to know the first two as well. I will make sure the data is just the way it was before this, 3 hash. So you can drag using your mouse. Second, you can go between A and B, and if you want to change the width of A, you can double click using your mouse and it will automatically change the width. So let's say if I'm going with ID, I'm adding some random zeros, I'm clicking on OK. You can see I can't see the data at all anymore, but if I'm clicking on OK, I have to change the, yeah. So if I'm double clicking between A and B, it will take the width required for each and every data point to be seen properly by you automatically, right? So you can do it, but here's a problem. The data set that we are working on right now is very, very small. Most of the time the data set that we are going to get when we are working with something is going to be extremely large, so we never know what exactly are we going to do, right? So for that, we can't just keep on clicking between each and every cell. That's why the most effective technique will be you see this flag between A and B, sorry, column A and row 1. We are going to click here and you can see when everything is highlighted, all of these columns in front of me are green, all of these rows in front of me are in green, and this entire sheet got shaded. Basically this means I have selected every single thing. All the cells are now selected. Now if I'm going between any particular column, let's say I and H, and if I'm double clicking now the entire sheet will actually be changed. So all of these columns will be taken into consideration, and I will have the fixed width through which I can see all the data points. So for ratio and glucose level, my columns took the width automatically, but for my hip and waist size, I did not require a very wide space, so it got changed. Now sometimes it might happen that you want to have a width of all of these columns to be at a certain level, right? So you select all of these using your mouse and then you extend it till the level you want. So if I'm extending it like this, all of these columns will have the same width. So let's say I'm reducing M and N, all of these columns will have the same width, right? If the same will happen if I'm doing with O and P, does not matter which particular column you are choosing, right? So remember that. I will like this to be in this format. Next thing, we learned how to work with let's say auto width. Third thing, bold. So we have to bold all of our headers. So for now, because you don't know how to just directly select everything together, I will prefer for you to actually go and select using your mouse like this, or select all the headers and then click Control B for ball, and you can see everything got selected automatically. Now when everything will get selected automatically, there will be some more space in between, and if I'm double clicking here, you can see now it's perfect, right? So that being said, now the second thing that we need to do, if we go here, If we scroll down a little, you can see the first row is always stagnant, but that's not the case here. It's not constant. And let's say I'm going all the way to the bottom to row 404. I genuinely don't know what is the meaning of this particular data point. Is it ID? Is it something else? I have no clue, right? And just because of that, it is our duty to make sure that the first row is actually frozen. So whenever we are actually scrolling down, we always know what information is being displayed, right? So we do it using a function that is known as freeze panes, right? But the thing is, I will not be teaching you the normal method of doing it. I will teaching you the way it should be done. That is how it is done in industry as well. Alt plus W plus F plus F. Okay, let's see how we can do it now. Let's say I'm going on let's say row 2. Okay, and if I want my row 1 to be frozen, I will always go to row 2. So whatever, let's say I want to freeze my first column A as well. So whatever column will be on the left of the selected cell, and whatever row above the selected cell will be frozen. So if I'm doing this function, that is alt, you can see some numbers coming in front of you. Don't worry about it right now. W, and you can go to F, and then you can go to F again. So you see, these are some of the points that you can always remember, and you don't necessarily have to go to view and freeze panes all the time. It will save up a lot of time for you when you're working with Excel. So I will unfreeze the pane right, and I will make you understand what exactly was happening. So if I'm clicking on alt here, and I can go to any column use by clicking on any the key which is being displayed on them. So let's say I want to go to view, because freeze pane is under view. I don't necessarily have to use my mouse and go to freeze panes. I can always click on W, and once I click on W, I can directly go to freeze panes function by clicking on F, and then I can choose freeze panes by clicking F again, right? So this is one of the function that you should remember. So that's why I was telling you, in all the lectures that we are going to see after this, we are actually going to use all of them very, very often, and we are going to add more as we go to each and every lecture. That's why it's important for you to understand everything. Second thing that all of you need to understand here, that would be, okay, I've frozen all of this information, but there's something known as cleaning the data. By cleaning the data, we mean, let's say there's something in your data set that is provided to you, that is this data set, which is not how you want it to be, right? So if I'm going to my sheet 1, okay, I will use control page down because I've taught you this now. And let's say I want to, yeah, you can see the ratio column as well as this column for glucose level. Both of them have just one decimal point. Like, that's what I really require. I don't need to know all the decimal points, right? It is just making my entire data set look very, very clumsy, right? Very, very heavy and very, very complicated. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select everything, right? And I'm going to change the number of, let's say, zeros that we have after decimal point, right? So for that, now instead of selecting the entire column using your mouse by clicking on the number, I will emphasize you to use control spacebar, right? Use control spacebar. You can see the dataset got selected. Now if I want to go to, let's say, the next column without using my mouse, I will do shift right arrow. Okay, and if I want to go to the left one, I can go shift left arrow. If I want to go to let's say till L, I can just keep on clicking on the right arrow as I have shift pressed in, so that this entire cell is getting, this entire array is getting highlighted. So right, so this range is known as an array. So that is one thing. So let's say I'm going here, control spacebar, shift right arrow will select the next particular column, and then under home you need to go and you need to select the number group. Under home tab, number group, and you can reduce the number of decimals that you can see in front of you. Now give them the appropriate space that you need to, and you can see it looks way cleaner. I will give them some more space though. Yeah, now it looks better. One more thing, let's say you want to go to the last column of let's say the entire data set. You don't necessarily have to use your mouse for that. You can use something known as control plus arrow keys. So if I'm going here, right, and let's say I want to select everything, I will always click on shift and right arrow. But if I'm clicking on control right arrow, you can see I'm able to navigate between the first cell and the last cell. If I want to go back, I will do control left arrow. If I want to go to the last cell, I will again click on control right arrow. And if I want to go all the way to the bottom, I will do control down arrow. Another. And if I want to do control up arrow, I can do that. So while you're working with this, you can understand what exactly is happening. Second thing, you will not go to the last cell, right? It will actually stop at that one particular cell which will have the last data point. So if this column is this cell is empty, it will stop on row 404. If I'm writing something, let's say I'm writing X here, and let's say if I want to navigate myself to the last row, I will go to 405 because there is data point. So whichever cell is having the last data point is actually going to be the cell where we will be navigating using our control arrow keys. That's how we use control arrow keys. There's a lot of practice involved in it before you get a hang of how exactly we're moving with this. Second thing, if you're using shift arrow, you can again select all the columns. But let's say if you want to select all the headers together, it is control shift right arrow. Let's say you want to select in the entire data set, control shift down arrow. You have selected everything, right? So this is how we are actually going to use control shift right arrows, control page up, page down, auto width, the all WFF for freezing panes, selecting the entire column and navigating between headers and rows. This is really important for you to understand because this is how it is done in the industry. You can go to any other Excel course and you can see what exactly is happening, but I prefer giving the practical view of how things are supposed to be done. Last thing, is a very small thing that we can understand. Let's say I'm selecting time.ppn using my control shift right down arrow, and I can see I'm stopping in between because we have empty cells, right? We'll stop all of them and we just keep on clicking on control shift right arrow. There's some of the options that you can see. I can see the average of this entire data set, number of data points, minimum, maximum count. I can see the sum of all of these data points as well. Now you can change, this is the status bar. The last bar under your sheet bar is actually your status bar. So if I'm going to right click here, I can select what information I can see. So let's say I want to see my numlock option, right? And let's say, yeah, sorry. And if I want to, let's say, do caps lock, all of these options, all of these can be shown to you. So let's say I don't want minimum and maximum to be there. You can see the shift being there. So most of the time, that's how it's going to be. You actually need to work on only these options: average count, numerical count, minimum, maximum, and sum, because that's what is required. So I hope you like this entire lecture a lot. If you have any doubts, you can mail me, or you can go to our YouTube channel's page and you can mail me, and you can always comment and I will be happy to answer. I hope you'll practice this. Please find the link, the drive link in the description. Thank you everyone.